Okay, traders, thank you very much for joining me on this evening's webinar. Of course, this evening, unfortunately, our regular host, Duncan Cooper, won't be joining us this evening. So I'll be taking you through this market analysis webinar myself. Now, just to introduce myself, I'm one of the senior account managers here at ACY. And I've also spent close to probably 10 to 15 years working very closely with Duncan Cooper, so quite familiar with Duncan's technical analysis approach. So shouldn't be too much of a difference this evening, and we'll get straight into it. So have a look at our risk disclaimer in front of you. As you know, will be answering your questions, talking about the markets, and won't giving any personal advice to any individual this evening, but looking forward to getting in and having a chat with you about your trading. So any questions that you do have, feel free to put those in. Duncan, unfortunately, is just a little under the weather and should be back ready to join us at some point next week. And let's get started right now. So let's have a look. I'll start off with the Aussie yen. So I'll bring up the charts now with you. All right, so as you know, we go through the different currency pairs, and I'm just keeping, I'll give you the perspective as well as the breakdown, and we'll also have a look at potential trade opportunities that might set up and where that might set up as well. So we'll start with the Aussies, and we'll go Aussie yen. I'm looking at the current situation. Now, the first thing I can see when I look from the start of the day, so if we go from the Tokyo Open through to now, the Aussie yen has been a little bit sideways, not a lot of movement, very similar to yesterday. So when we look at yesterday, say from Tokyo Open to now, we've gone a day now and a half really of the market consolidating in a sideways pattern. So when I'm going from here, I want to start to have a look at the big picture and let's work it back and see what we can see. So when I look at the weekly chart on this Aussie yen, it's tried to get up to these key levels of resistance. So we're looking at 95.73, okay, at around that level. So it put in this sort of head and shoulders pattern, and this is on a weekly chart. So up around here, last week we had price is certainly putting in higher bottoms on a weekly chart. However, it has run into this resistance zone. So let's move down now to the daily chart. And this is that area that we're talking about. So what I'm looking at on the daily, we can see this 95.75 level. And this so far has really acted as resistance. We had one day, tried to get above a few days ago. It tried to go a little bit higher the next day. So yes, the current situation is on a daily chart. We are in an uptrend, but we are failing up at this key resistance level. So that being said, what I'm looking at now is I'm looking at this next level down. So this 95.14. Okay, so you can see that previous resistance level. Let's say the trend is going to continue. Is price going to hold above this 95.14 level here on daily resistance? Is it going to hold here, or are we going to see it fail back underneath there? And at that point, I can look at this and say, well, this longer term resistance has come into play. Okay, so if we go daily chart, let's have a look at the 4 hourly. And looking at the 4 hourly at the moment, it has significantly failed. I think we got a big move up. It got above that key level on the weekly I was talking about. The next 4 hourly actually closed back below, and then it's been failing ever since. So if you're looking at trading opportunities, I'm looking at this and saying this weekly, daily, 4 hourly type level has certainly come into play. So if you're looking to trade in line, say with this current daily trend, you really need to see it hold above this 95.14. But keep in mind that how much room have you got until you run into sort of weekly and daily serious resistance? So is there really a trading opportunity there? For those of you who are looking at taking advantage of a potential short setup, then that can happen too. So let's go from the Aussie yen across to the Aussie USD. So I'm looking at the Aussie USD at the moment, and we're seeing in the Aussie USD, it has sort of had a fair bit of strength. And I'm on a daily chart. So let's just have a look and see what opportunities might present themselves. So I'm on a daily chart at the moment, and it's almost like it's been holding above, you know, this 68.74 level. It tried to get below it and it shot back up. It's consolidating, but at this stage, it has broken back below this level, okay, and has presented some trading opportunities. I'm looking at this day here and saying it tried to show that it was going to hold, but it really didn't. So right now, the trend, you know, the way that I'm seeing this is now down. Okay, down on the Aussie against the USD. And that, as we'll have a look at in a moment, could be largely a result of, you know, US dollar still hanging on to some strength. Okay, so I'm looking at the Aussie USD and I'm saying I really am liking this level here. So if this 68.54 daily support if we could get a move back up and it could show you that it's failing, okay, then is there a trading opportunity there? So just let me put in so 68.54. Okay, so I've just placed that in there for you right now. And let's go to, say, the 4-hourly chart. We'll just work our way down. So you can see 4-hourly, there's even a level here where it's a fraction lower, but that's where it closed for the day. So if you want to even put in on a 4-hourly level and consider that. So what we're seeing is we're seeing the trend breaking lower. But what I would be really keen to see is, as it did over the last 4-hour candle, it tried to get up there, but it failed. I really would be looking at that on a 15-minute setup and saying, okay, can we get price to actually hold back above here? Or if we do get price fail, is this current lower tops and bottoms pattern going to continue? Last night, we did get some disappointing data out of the US, if you're looking at that. So I think they were looking with the ADP employment data, it was about 300,000 jobs, when in fact it came in at about 130,000. So there's a lot of uncertainties. I know previously with Jerome Powell, he's come out. First of all, he said there was no inflation. Second of all, he said, oh, look, it's just going to be transitory. And now we're getting comments like households are going to feel pain. So when you start to hear this change in their, you could say their philosophy or their view, then is that going, you know, to create a potential fear trade back into the US, but only temporarily? Because one of the big assets that the US had, as far as their economy goes, was that they had really low unemployment figures. Yes, they had inflation problem. Yes, they're in a contraction period as far as their GDP goes. So we're really keeping an eye and saying, okay, well, it could continue to be a strong economy as long as everyone's got jobs. Okay, so that will be something that already has disappointed, but remember, that's just the automated ADP figure. We'll be looking at Friday for the main number there. So let's keep an eye on that and what people are earning. So remember, tonight and tomorrow night, we'll get some data out. So keep an eye on that. But as far as this Aussie goes, on the other side, I'm really saying if price can come up and you see signs where it's failing, is this trend going to continue south? Let's go to the 15-minute and see what's going on. And I think you can see here, it's pretty clear. It's right up at that 4-hourly resistance level. And so far, even though it is a little bit quiet, it hasn't shown enough for price to give you an indication it's reversing here, or is it going to go all the way up to, say, this central pivot, which coincides with that daily, is it support becoming resistance? So these are the sort of areas I'll be keeping an eye on. I know we've had this, you can see it there, I've had this literal sell-off pretty quick. So is there resistance here? I'll be keeping an eye on this area up here. Now let's have a look at dollar, USD. Yeah, that's where we're at the moment, folks. Anybody got any questions? Don't hesitate to shoot them through too, or different views on that. But that's certainly broken down. Okay, let's move across now. And I don't know if everybody at this stage in this webinar this evening, and I know there's a fair few people, let's have a look at, I know you may or may not be involved in our Telegram feed. So I'll just show this to you, and then I will show you an example too at the same time. So I know a few days ago in our live interactive trading feed that Duncan and myself and our global team leader here, Lenny Voipicella, the three of us will provide you updates either in the form of short videos or where key levels are reached. If you're not already a member, it's for any of our funded live clients. So it's a free service that's provided. But if we have a look to a couple of days ago, I know Duncan's not with us, but I'd like to maybe show you an example here. So let's have a look at this Euro Yen. Very short videos that come out. So you'll see this was the area here where Duncan was looking at this sort of 138.29, and the view was, okay, we're putting in these higher tops and bottoms, higher bottoms, okay, but we are now actually looking at putting in a higher top here. So the question was, if price can hold here, is this now going to continue higher? Okay, so has there been a trend, actual short-term daily trend change? And also you're looking at your 4-hourly as well. So these are the levels where you're going to get an indication based on the technicals as to what's going to happen. So let's get out of the Telegram for now. Now, if anyone wants to get access, just email me. Just email nathan.bray at acy.com, or feel free to put your details in the chat here, and we'll receive those. So looking at this Euro Yen, let's just see how it performed, because that's the next pair that we're dealing with. And you can see that this area here, where 137.96, and I'm on a daily chart, and this was the level here. So this 138.39. So what we've seen is if price could break through, and then you can see, I'll draw in the line, you can see where price actually comes back down. Look, it won't be absolutely spot on, because what are we looking at? 138.39. There you go. That's 138.37. Let me just quickly change that for you. It's 1 pip, but every pip matters. So this area here, you look at this and say, okay, well, it was a good move, because from here we've already seen a good sort of hunt in the last few days, sort of 175 pips from that level moving higher. So even if you decided at that level, say, to use 100 pip stop or whatever your strategy was, that key level there to find a hold obviously has worked very well over the last few days. And at this point, there's nothing major to suggest that things are really going to change drastically, other than could we get price pull back and show us that it's going to hold. And if it does come down and hold again, is there going to be an opportunity, I guess, to trade that, continue trading that higher? Now, there is some weakness, obviously, in the yen, but there has been, as far as the euro goes, it has been fairly stable. All right, so we'll have a look at that on the euro dollar in a moment. Now, let's move it to the 4 hour and get a better picture, because it was really here is where Duncan was getting that out on the telegram. So let's just put that area in. We'll move to a 4 hourly chart. And you can see here when it did break above, I mean, you're going to have, say, traders that suddenly say, oh, I missed it, I need to go long. But you will notice that price did pull back and gave us an indication, which is where Duncan was at, both here and a little bit lower. But we can see here when we look at this 138.39 level, price came down on a 4 hourly, and then you had, whether you're using a 4 hourly entry criteria, you can see here it came down to this level. The next 4 hour candle actually closed above that previous level, down in line with the trend. Price moved up from there. We got a correction, but literally corrected back to a very similar area on a 4 hourly chart. And now we've had a nice move up. So the idea that, okay, it's going to break through either a resistance level or support level and you're just going to miss out, is, as you can see there, it's just not true. So you're going to then, it's okay for it to break through, but then it needs to show you that it's going to hold that price structure and continue, or are we going to see a complete change? Now, is it possible it could just break either up or down one way or the other and you'll completely miss out? Absolutely it is. But if you're doing that as a strategy, then you're in a position where you need to take all those key levels. So let's move down to, say, the 15-minute chart. And depending on what your entry criteria is, so you can see how price, in this case, it moved all the way down and we got a retest. Okay, so it came back down into this zone. So this area here was the key level. We eventually got price closing above the central pivot, like a 15-minute chart is one good thing, and then the next candle as well. So I know that particular day, which is only a few days ago, I literally had Duncan probably talking to me about 3 or 4 times during the day saying, have you, this Aussie yen could go higher, Nathan, this Aussie yen could go, oh, sorry, Euro yen could go higher. And I was like, all right. So depending on what your strategy is, because the previous day, as we move back, we got the breakthrough, but it's really been holding above here, meaning the buyers were interested in paying more. Okay, the market was interested in paying more, even when it came back for a retest. And keep in mind, the markets have been a little bit sideways over the last few days. It suddenly became a level that the market was interested, the buyers are interested in buying there. So therefore, this evening, we've seen price move higher. Could it be that we get a pullback to the central pivot and we could look for a potential trade set up there, as at this point, the daily trend is up. I know we didn't take a lot of time looking at the weekly trend, but let's have a look. And you can see here on a weekly trend, it's, yes, it's moving up to a bit of weekly resistance, but at this point, I would say it's putting in higher bottoms, higher tops, even on the weekly chart. Okay, so it's something to keep in mind. All right, so Euro yen. Now let's go across to Euro dollar. Okay, so, and I've got this highlighted because I know I want to sort of highlight this idea that if we are seeing a situation where, Jerome Powell from the Fed is coming out and talking about economic pain for households and that this inflation isn't completely under control and they're going to be aggressive to try and fight it. The fundamental situation from being a booming economy that didn't really have any issues, that had strong employment and could handle interest rates coming back up to be normalized, is, in one view, you could say that that's changed based on the data and based on, you know, the information coming out of the FOMC. So are we then in a position where we've got to look for the fact that so far the US dollar has been the strength largely in the market? So then do we start saying, is there a point where this US dollar could be overextended from a trading perspective? So here we are looking at the daily of the Euro USD, and a lot of pundits are calling for weakness. So what we like to do in these webinars is just get our head around the technical aspects here. Because let's face it, the technical aspect is the scoreboard, all right? And it is telling us the actual facts of where people are buying and selling and what their view is. So I'm looking at the weekly chart here, and this level, this sort of 99.53, right around parity, was a level that when we were in this strong downtrend, you know, we got this price where it was respected. Okay, we had a nice rally off there, so all the way back up to major previous support, becoming resistance, and it's gone back down and it's hit this same area. So weekly chart, last week it tried to go below but failed. This week it's tried to go below and failed. So if we're consolidating, or if are we potentially looking at an overextended US dollar where we could see a buying opportunities? And I know from my own experience and my own trading account, I've been, you know, always trading with the trend. So therefore you're looking for shorting opportunities probably for about the last, you know, long number of months. So are we seeing opportunities to actually you know, are we actually going to look at buying opportunities here? So I'll be keeping a really close eye on whether or not this data that comes out Friday, and from the words of the FOMC in mind, and watch what the market does, because so far it can't get below it. So let's go weekly, let's go daily. So when we look at the daily too, this is putting in, so it's back above that a major support level, but we are also seeing this, you know, higher bottoms approaching and higher tops as far as the daily goes. Okay, so we are seeing this move higher, and therefore we've seen this level. It was difficult to close below it. So right now, is it possible that if I am looking to be a seller, I'm looking at levels like, say, this 101, and remember, we're literally right around parity. So the other thing to keep in mind is currencies are a medium of exchange, and this, you know, no doubt is two of the biggest currencies on the globe. So as a medium of exchange, where are we at as far as an overextended? Is there a point where people go, oh, hang on, you know, as a medium of exchange, is the market or the bank's going to turn around and say, hang on, that's too cheap, or that's becoming too expensive? And that's something to keep in mind. So I've got a question coming in here so I've got a question here from Cameron. So he's saying, so if they put the interest rates up to curb inflation, you're saying this generally weakens the dollar or strengthens it? Well, I mean, you can say that, but Cameron, I guess the best way for me to sort of to put it to you is, if inflation isn't transitory and it's now a major problem to the point where households are going to suffer, right? The idea that you've got inflation at 8.5%, even worse in the UK, and I know it's all around the world, the idea that you're sending in a very small, skinny man to fight the big devil, right? Are you really in the fight, is my question to ask you. Like, we're only raising rates a couple of percent, right? We knew there was going to be an inflation problem. They've admitted that now, but I remember when I was a kid, we were literally suffering from Inflation, I believe it was, above 10, probably 11, 12. We raised rates up to, up in the early 20s to fight 10 to 14, right? Right now, and that's how they overcame inflation. Right now, they're talking a big game, but they're raising rates to 2%. Inflation's at 8. So when they say they're aggressively fighting, I don't believe them. I feel like they're talking a big game, but they don't deliver. So if you really want to fight inflation, then wouldn't it be fair to say you need to at least normalize rates or get to a neutral stance of, say, 4 or 5%? They're talking about neutral stance means that they can at least take away the effects of inflation, but they're talking about that's the highest point they're going to get. So that's just getting to a neutral stance. So when we're looking at it at the moment, I think we need to just keep that into perspective and say, well, just how aggressively are they fighting something that A, they said wouldn't happen, and B, now they say is a major problem. So when it comes to raising rates, if it's expected, then the market could just move in that direction too. Like we could see them raise rates and the market's already factored that in. So keep that in mind as well. Like if everyone says, oh, they're going to raise 0.75, I mean, I get if they change what they're doing, but when they, and keep in mind, it's such early days as well when it comes to those fundamentals, that if inflation's so much higher and they're going to be aggressive, they're just going to keep raising over a period of time. So the market may have already factored that in. It's only if they do something different that we could see something different. And what I've noticed is, are they raising rates, right, to try to stop weakness? See, that, I mean, one of the reasons people used to raise rates was when an economy's strong. So therefore you're like, okay, I'm raising rates just to slow down the economy a fraction. And they say, oh, well, great, raise rates, get some of the air out of the bubble. And what happens then is it's good for an economy. And therefore, I think that's what they refer to when they say it's good for a currency. What happens when you're raising rates because you've got no choice? What happens when inflation's taking, is really taking off and you're forced to raise rates? Does that necessarily mean that's going to be good for a currency? Okay, that's something to consider. And I know when we looked at New Zealand, we'll get to it in a moment, they've been raising rates pretty aggressively, one of the first countries, and we really have seen the currencies, both New Zealand yen, New Zealand dollar falling. One more question before we move on. So Slav saying, good to, and by the way, Cameron, great to have a chance to talk to you, and same to Slav. So they're saying so much negativity is coming from the Eurozone at the moment. And now in September, all those issues are going to become sort of more pronounced. And I think, Slav, are you sort of talking as well about the inflation issue and the fact that they're moving into winter? And there could be also then an energy, because that's really the thing that I saw, Goldman Sachs come out in the UK, and they were saying yesterday, talking about a 22% inflation level potentially, where it could get to in the Ukraine, and in the UK. My apologies, Freudian slip. And also talking about the fact that we could go to 85% increase in energy costs. So again, it brings me back to the start where I say, all right, if there was a full-blown war raging, which was the prediction, then the idea was that we'd end up with $200 a barrel oil. I heard pundits saying that. So what I was really careful technically is using the levels and saying, hang on a second, have those things actually occurred? It's hard to measure. So technically I can look and see what price actually did, okay, to understand that. Now, again, they're making big calls, but I now need to look at these levels to try and understand whether or not, if it's based on something we don't know or an uncertain type of scenario, we need to try and measure that, and that's where the technical levels come in. All right, so let's just keep moving on. So euro dollar, I'm looking at this euro dollar and saying the longer term trend obviously is down. We are finding some support at the moment. Okay, so where there is a lot of negativity coming out of Europe, but there's a lot of negativity coming out of the US as well. So that was sort of my point for tonight, saying, what if we're in an overextended US dollar strength type area? So I'm really keeping an eye on, see this previous top here on the daily. I'll just read it out to you. So right around this, parity. So what we've seen is price go under parity. Okay, it's come back up for a test, and I know Duncan was pointing this out, but that previous level, is that becoming resistance? So this is the area I'm talking about, this 10096, and we saw it become resistance around 10090. And I'm looking at this area here now. So my longer term view, in line with just the technical trend, is down. However, I'm also being cautious of the fact that we could have an overextended US dollar potentially, and that at the moment it's putting in this double bottom. So I'm looking at this area up here. I mean, it'd be ideal if we could get back to 101 and look for signs of reversal at the moment. So am I really keen to be a buyer? I would say no, because I'm in line with the trend, but at the same time, this level of weekly support at the moment is holding. Okay, so if you were looking for buying opportunities down here, it's certainly moved in that direction over the last week. The other side of it too is keep in mind that if you've got two weaker characters on both sides of the seesaw, okay, then are we going to see a period of consolidation? And that's what really I'm looking for. Whereas if I see price actually close back above here, putting in higher tops, so back above this, 1009, then and getting through that major level of support, then this trend is suggesting that it's going higher. How much higher will it go? Well, if you're a seller, you might want it to come all the way back up and retest this level, this 103.49. And I know that major support, we did have to wait a few weeks, but that was the goal. And look what happened. It got all the way back up there, and we've had a pretty solid 450 pip type move down from that level. So at the moment, yes, we have a double bottom scenario occurring. So I'm looking for key levels where trading opportunities might exist. If I just have a quick look at the 15-minute chart here. I look at this and I just see that, yes, we've had a bit of volatility, but it's trading right around the central pivot at the moment. Okay, so central pivot to me, it's sort of trading under, a bit over. There's no real clear direction at this stage. Whereas if I could get a real solid fail underneath, there's nothing really clear for a trading opportunity. However, if price was to come back down and hold, okay, if we get a hold back above parity and think of it as a psychological level of potential support, then you could look for opportunities there as well. But again, I'm just staying on this daily chart, and that is pretty much where we're at. And it's very similar. One of the things I'm also, considering is as we now move over to the pound yen, we have seen over the recent days, and probably as a result and whether it's retail investors or institutional investors, we're getting a lot of information about, energy prices going up 85% potentially by some of the bigger banks in the UK. So we've seen a big difference between pound weakness and, the euro sort of consolidating at a key level. So let's have a look at the pound yen right now, and imagine this is the pound yen on a daily chart, and you can see a different story here, can't you? You're literally looking at daily support and resistance. The pound is moving down. I'm looking to see if it can hold down around 160.801, but we've had some very negative news coming out, and I'm going off this level here. So I'm going off this 160.389. So 163.89. It's tried to get below. It's actually started putting in higher bottoms, from what I'm seeing. So at the moment, I really like to see it come down and test it. I'll go to a weekly chart, pound yen. And at the moment, the weekly chart is down, but we've got this pretty serious level of support, and that will be what I'll be looking for to see if price can test it. And if we are consolidating, then is there going to be opportunities to look for trades off that pound yen? And so weekly chart, if I go to a monthly chart, I know we're doing it a little bit reverse. We've even had it's very close to crossing down as well. So I'm looking at the weekly chart again. This is your area here, this 160.38. Let's go daily. And you can see what's going on here. It's very sideways. So as I mentioned, if the trend is down, can we get a rally back up to retest the previous levels of resistance? So this 162.68, okay, or potentially higher, or can we get back up and retest this 162.97? So that kind of area there. However, it's been pretty clear that we've got some pretty major levels of support as well. So I'll be looking at price to come back down and look for a retesting of this 160.38. All the news coming out, obviously, on this on the pound at the moment, again, a bit like the euro, is pretty negative. And let's have a look at the pound dollar. So looking at the cable, this is actually something that Duncan really pointed out to me, and I'm sure he's been bending your guys' ears as well. So let's have a look at the monthly chart. So when we look at a monthly chart here of the cable, of the pound dollar, we're getting down to like a long time, lows occurring here on the pound. Is there the potential that it could be a little bit overextended? Or if we start to get some weak data and we are already getting some contraction in the US economy, rather than running to a fear trade, do you really want to be selling right down near monthly or longer time sort of lows? That's something to keep in mind as well. So this isn't just some daily low that price is in a strong trend it can break down. We're talking longer period of time. So we're going all the way back at the stage to 2020. We're down at 2016, and then really going back way before. So that's something where is it that different and that weak is something to consider. Let's go to a weekly chart. Weekly chart's definitely breaking. At this point, it's broken this monthly and weekly support level. So we're keeping a very close eye on it. So looking for trading opportunities, I'd love to get an opportunity where we do get it move back in line with this trend, but I'd be wanting to see it either fail up here, up at this 117.60 kind of area. I'm on a weekly, whereas if I move to a daily, it's broken down at these significant long time low levels on the monthly. I want to see price come back up and show me that it's failing underneath there, or as I mentioned, a little bit higher, even up at 117.17. Okay, so trading in line with that trend. Could it be that it's going to absolutely collapse? It's just that all the experts and all the pundits, etc., are 100% correct, and it's going to be devastating. Then sure, you're going to potentially miss out on that trade. I understand that, but I do want to look for confirmation to get some kind of high probability. If I go to the 15-minute chart now, So at the moment, it's a bit sideways. It is trading right around this figure. So I tried to get above it as the London market opened. But at this point, you would say this trend at the moment is still down. So I'm looking for price to move, back up, as I mentioned. Or can we get it come all the way back up to retest this 117 area as well? So interesting times ahead, but also keep in mind, tomorrow night we've got our big data event coming out on the US. So as long as that comes in some kind of expectation, then are we going to see the pound actually continue moving lower? So that will be very volatile for the market, as it is every month. And this is in a strong downtrend. Okay, so before we go and have a look at the New Zealand and yen, New Zealand dollar, I just want to look at two different things. So let's look at dollar yen. Dollar yen weekly, and this is where I was bringing up this idea with the pound, like we're right down at really significant historical monthly lows. So I'm looking at a weekly chart on dollar yen, and look at it. It's right up at significant weekly highs. Okay, so again, it's this situation where if we got some really or below expectation news, especially with employment, which has been one of Powell's biggest draw cards, saying, look, everyone's got a job, it's all good, economy's strong. So it'll be interesting to see that, but you can see the market's right up at these key levels. If I go to a monthly, there's your resistance area here. Is this going to hold? So there's your monthly. And if we go weekly, just so I like to look at the picture. And then let's go to daily and get an idea of where we're at. So price hasn't been real. It hasn't been easy for it. So I'm looking at 139.38. Okay, this major resistance level yesterday, it tried to get above it. Let's have a look at the 15-minute chart. Tried to get above it, and look at that. It's at this point, it's failing back below. Now, if you're still very bullish, right around the figure and right around the central pivot, okay, is up some resistance. If the view is it's going to explode higher, then down around this area here, if you get a pullback to there, might provide an opportunity. And if we look at a 4-hourly chart as well, you can see that's the level. If this trend is strong and it's still going higher and we're just getting a little bit of correction, I'll just sort of paste that in. So that resistance, is that going to become support? Okay, and let's go to the 15-minute chart. I know I didn't put that in perfectly, but I think you understand the area. So is the market willing to pay above 130, 139, okay, as a psychological level? And it's also the central pivot, and it's also a 4-hourly resistance level. So if we start to get price break and hold back below there, then this strong uptrend reaching a major level of, let's call it weekly resistance for this US dollar. So that's something. Now, before we move on, let's have a look. There's some questions here. Okay, yeah, good point, Slav. Slav saying there's a lot of weakness on this, on the euro side, pretty much guaranteed. So gas issues. So overall state of the economy, and of course inflation. So we're moving into winter. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I just didn't see your response a little earlier there. Apologies, Slav. But yeah, thanks heaps for that. Now let's keep moving across. So I would want to look at, let's have a look at New Zealand and just get a bit of an idea here. So New Zealand, I'm looking at a daily chart, but I will move a bit higher, and I'll say, let's go to weekly chart on New Zealand. And it looks very similar, New Zealand yen to the Aussie yen, as in it sort of reached this level. I'm just going to pick one in here, okay, where price is actually around this 86, 81. And right now it's really run into that, and it's been consolidating, but it's been consolidating, putting in on the weekly these higher bottoms. Okay, so that's just something to consider. And then let's go to the daily. And at the moment on the daily, it's been putting in these lower tops, right? So I look at that and say, yep, that resistance is in play. Is that a resistance level that I'm going to look for? It's been putting in lower bottoms as well. So again, up here is sort of the area where I want to go from resistance up around 86.21 all the way up. Yeah, so I'm looking at this area up here at this point. If we had price go back up and retest a level of resistance, then potentially. So let's just go. It's very similar to the Aussie yen. I don't want to spend, a whole heap of time, but I love to look at the fibs as well. So if I go at this most recent fib, so just this top to its bottom, you can see how price, and I'm on a weekly, and I'm just going off this one because it's the most recent. I know they're all very close, but you'll notice it's a 79 fib retracement level. Okay, after red had put in lower tops on the weekly and was starting to fail. So if the view is there's trading opportunities, then you can pick these key levels as well. So that's the New Zealand. Let's go to the daily. It is very much trading in this sideways pattern. So I'd be looking for price to see price actually go up, and you can see on the daily there we had a nice failure a couple of days ago, and it's been moving down about 80 odd pips from there at the moment. So overall, that resistance really needs to be broken, and price showing it's going to hold above. But at the moment, I think the resistance levels are still, based on the price structure there, in play. Let's keep moving. So let's go New Zealand dollar. New Zealand dollar is in a downtrend. Okay, it's very similar to the Aussie, and I'm looking at a daily chart here. So for those of you who have been trading this New Zealand dollar, and this is a great point that was mentioned earlier, I think by Cameron, it's like New Zealand dollar has been going down pretty rapidly, and yet it was one of the first to raise their rates. Okay, so saying to yourself, this one event, is going to determine the way the market moves. You need to then say, all right, well, how much value is to that? Like, if they're really out there to fight inflation, this is where my headspace is at, then wouldn't they be rapidly rising? Oh, they can't, because it will weaken the economy, or the economy's weak. You know what I mean? So is raising really good for a currency? I get that there's the opportunity where you're going to earn more in one currency than another. I get the carry trade, and that is very much in play. And that's where if we start to get weakness out of this US dollar, and there's all these US dollars floating around, and people need to then pay the interest on those, does that take that concept out of it a little bit as well? But right now, daily trend is down. I'm going to go to the 4 hourly. And you can see here, I was really keen to look at this level. I know yesterday, this level on the 4 hourly, so 61, it's also sort of a figure kind of level. And right now, it's this 4 hour candle's reversed, it's completely reversed the previous one. And I'm really looking at the 61 sort of 25 area. Okay, because that's a daily level. I'm looking to see if there is a trading opportunity to continue lower from there. All right, now the other big currency pair, let's have a look at the dollar CAD. Dollar CAD, the US dollar is, moving very rapidly higher. So this US dollar now, it's moved to the point where it's in an uptrend, higher tops and bottoms. The structure has now changed. We were looking for some weak opportunities, but it's through. So, however, am I convinced? Well, I want to see price either come back down and retest these levels of resistance to become support, and therefore we could look for an opportunity for the trend to continue. If we go to a weekly trend, you can see here that this has changed now. I mean, yes, there is this resistance level to keep in mind. But what I'm really looking for now, dollar CAD wise, is a pullback. One of the things, because it's a commodity currency in Canada, we're also having a look for if we get changes in the oil price. So I know the oil price at the moment, it's certainly not skyrocketing. In fact, it's back below the level that, and we'll have a look at that as well. So I'll just show you that chart. So this is the level here that I'm looking at, West Texas Intermediary, and I'm on a daily. I'm really keeping an eye on this 86 level 08. If there's talk that there's problems in the euro, the pound, problems in the US economy, it's contracting, you know, in a recession, do we need to use as much oil as we would when things are really doing well? I even saw some data coming out, obviously, on China today. So this is the area, by the way, I'm keeping a look at. Now, this spike here, I know I'm sort of jumping around, but we want to try and get this done for you in the hour. I'm on oil and I'm looking at this day here. I remember it was the 24th of Feb, okay, around that time. And this was the moment that the Ukrainian incident, I call it, because, you know, they're not invading the capital as yet. And that country, after 6 months, is, you know, it's not completely obliterated. And when, that kind of thing, which was predicted, hasn't happened for me. And the oil price is back below, you know, the first day when things started, you know, when the fear trade really kicked in, and we did see a big move above. But right now I'm looking at it and saying, well, it's certainly below that level for now. And we're starting to admit things like economic problems around the world and contraction. And so that's why I believe that, you know, I'm really keeping a close eye on oil at 86.22. So 86.22, let's look for potential trading opportunities there. Can it hold there? Or if it breaks through there, then, you know, it will be a complete and can hold under there. Then you're going to get a change in trend with oil prices dropping. So key level, let's have a look at a weekly. And we are seeing a scenario at the moment around the world, whether it be stocks, whether it be gold, whether it be oil, you know, a lot of these assets are selling off at the moment. And one might say it's due to the fact that, you know, the markets around the world aren't doing as great as expected. And inflation is a greater problem. So we've had this change occur. So keep an eye on that major level of resistance at that 86, let's just call it 86 level, and see if we can hold that. Okay. And we are moving. I get all the different things that are going on, but what I'm doing is looking at that. I'm looking, say, for those of you who are looking at, say, gold. You know, gold at the moment, if I go to a monthly chart, gold has been selling off. It's right down, like oil, down at a major level of longer term support, okay, at 1680. So I have been, as you know, pretty bearish from this double top scenario. Could we see it break even lower? And however, things could change, and we are seeing 10-year yields start to rise above 3 pretty solidly. So the initial effect could very well be that, you know, people are putting their money in what they believe is a very safe scenario as the yields are rising. But why are yields rising? Well, yields are rising because they have to offer more yield, you know, because people aren't just putting their money straight into the bonds like they would. So that's something to consider. And then if we go to, say, which I've been, you know, pointing out over the last few weeks, is looking at opportunities to sell stocks as well. So if we look at the S&P 500, I know Duncan's sick, but I even, for the first time, put in a 200-day moving average daily chart. We're up at a 62% retracement level. The 200-day moving average, major weekly resistance. And look, we've seen a pretty solid sell-off from there. So is this, we're seeing a sell-off, as you saw there, in gold, in oil, S&P 500. I'll just show you the weekly chart too, so you can see that. So major weekly support, 62% fib retracement level, and a very sharp sell-off over the last few weeks. Okay. If we go NASDAQ, you can see it's look at that, 62% retracement. This is just on a daily, keeping it simple. Trading opportunity. If you want to take profit out of your trade, then you by all means do that. There's nothing here to really suggest if they're going to be raising rates, it's bad for the NASDAQ as well. So is this correction that we had? We got a sudden rally. We saw lots of money move in to the markets from various entities, which really are going to be not helping inflation. And then we've just got a really sudden sell-off. The only one that I would suggest is that might somewhat be positive is this Dow Jones. So this Dow Jones, it's only 30 stocks. So keep that in mind. And when you look at the Dow Jones, it had a really nice, solid indice. Like you saw here, it was putting in higher tops, all this kind of thing. But when we look at say put in our Fibonacci retracement on a weekly, all the way to the bottom, it came up to the 79 fib retracement level and went down. Remember, because it's only 30 companies in the Dow Jones, a lot of them either have exposure to oil companies or energy companies, and it also has exposure, therefore, to military kind of weapons producing companies. So when you put those two together, I mean, weapons producing and etc., they're all going to use oil. So therefore, keep an eye on some kind of correlation too when you see the Dow Jones and keeping an eye on the oil price. ASX 200. ASX 200, something extremely similar. So 62% fib retracement. I'm on a daily from this level. All of those decided to roll over not too long ago. So I think it's always handy. And when you think about the idea that, we saw Bitcoin kind of fall first, what I'd be looking at is keeping an eye on this 10-year yield or some of the bonds and seeing, do they have to keep giving people more money to buy their bonds? Like, will the yield keep going up 3 higher? If we keep seeing that, then you have an effect where money's going to come out of the stocks that we've seen. And if that really starts to continue, there's always this question of liquidity. So that's something to keep in mind, guys, if you're trading the indices. And then the final thing I know Duncan might look at all the time, if we have a look at Bitcoin, I mean, we saw a massive sell-off, but it really hasn't recovered, has it? I mean, we're basically back. I put it on a monthly chart, kind of back down at major lows. So, I mean, yes, this was the first high around 19,000, 20,000. We're kind of back below there. And if you think about risk assets, things that were higher risk, etc., the first thing that would come to mind really is looking at Bitcoin. A lot of the cryptocurrencies. I know this isn't the worst scenario for the cryptocurrency. Bitcoin might have done better than your altcoins. And then the question then is, now we're starting to see stocks, things like that selling off. As you move up into areas where it's a bit more standardized kind of asset class. And we're now hearing, okay, things are looking a bit rough as far as their economies around the world go. So don't mean to leave it on a bad note, but very true. So the last thing, I think there was a question about gas. Here we go. So gas. So I'm on a weekly chart. I'm really looking at the gas around this 936 type area. The prediction is obviously it's going to be a problem in the UK. 936 area, you can see week after week, it's tried to get above there, but it's closed back below it. So let's, I'm keeping an eye on this 936 area. It's failed back below there now. The question, I guess, mentally would be, all right, so if I'm in a recession in a country that is actually using, because production-wise, it might require heating and gas, etc. Same with oil. If I'm using less, then there's a view that, as we've seen in the oil price now, the amount of oil needed on a supply and demand level is going to be less. So the price could go down because not as much oil is being used. And say we're in a country or an economy that's doing really well, right? It's really productive and needs more and more gas and oil to be able to produce all the stuff that they're producing because people want it on the demand side. So that's what I'm looking at here. I get we're moving into winter, but this isn't Game of Thrones, right, guys? This isn't the House of the Dragon. We're not suddenly using, it's not the coldest winter we've ever had. So if you cross-correlate that to other winters and sort of say, well, yes, the price could go up a bit, but it's, we're not in the Al Gore Ice Age yet. That was sort of, suggested long ago. So that's where I'm keeping that key level in mind to sort of say, okay, well, if we are in a recession, there's problems around the world, contractions, then, let's use a level and to try and determine price-wise. And of course, I understand other elements come involved, but I'm very much looking at the fact that the last 3 weeks, its price has really failed up around this level. Yeah, good point that Slab's made as well, is that, price, the spread is going to be different, obviously, with gas. So keep that in mind when you're trading. Now, I first of all would like to thank everyone. Thanks for joining. I apologize. Obviously, I'm not the regular person you have, and I know Duncan is extraordinary. In fact, he was my first trading. Actually, he was one of my first trading mentors. So spent a lot of time trading with him, and obviously we do wish him the best and hope he gets well really soon so he can be back here and, more importantly, talking to me as I run, different trades over him. But keep in mind that we do have the inner circle coming up. So it's for all of our either bespoke or highly active traders. So that's coming up next Monday. So Monday the 5th. And we will be, if there's any questions about the inner circle, what it will be is an opportunity for people that are very familiar with what Duncan teaches or what he's going through to have a one-on-one sort of 5-10 minutes with Duncan in a small group. So it's really just for about 10 tops of our active traders. And if we need to do more and more webinars, we will. But it gives everybody a chance, I think, for 2 parts. One, it gets a chance for you to hear what other people are doing when they're trading and how their trading's going and what they would like assistance with or what they might have questions with or just an area they want to, better understand. Then that allows traders to get an idea. Oh, okay, I'm not in my own boat, right? I actually am going through something similar, whether it's an entry, improving your entry, improving your exit, understanding support and resistance, different strategies, etc. So that will really be the purpose. I'll actually host it and we'll bring Duncan in and give everyone sort of 5 to 10 minutes each. So if you've got any questions for that, please send them through. I know got a number of people that have already confirmed, but please don't hesitate to send through your questions to me and I'll have therefore the charts and everything ready. And I guess the other part is you get a chance to talk to someone who's trading is their life, and believe me, it is Duncan's life, and something that he's constantly watching. And to get feedback from someone that is a profitable trader is going to be really useful. So inner circle, look forward to seeing you guys there that have been invited. Yes, thanks, guys. Thank you for all your time. And And for those of you I'll see at the Inner Circle webinar next week, and good luck with your trading, everyone.